Thank you very much. Okay, things are really rocking for the United Way. This is the fourth kickoff in the past 4 days, and this guy has been to all of them. Here to tell you about what's happening is Executive Director Ryan Erb.
Ryan, thank you very much for joining me.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
Now, this is a special year for the United Way, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. You want to know why?
Yeah, I do actually.
We are celebrating our 60th anniversary as an organization. It's amazing.
60
60
years.
years.
How has this changed or evolved over those 60 years?
Well, you know, United Way has changed a lot. Over the years, it's come from an organization that was simply the one way that we raise money for every organization in our community. We still do that. Of course, we're a fundraiser and a funder of many organizations in the community, but we have become an organization that actually does what we call social development. So we understand the social issues in your community, and then we try to solve the problems that people are facing by bringing many partners together, whether it's government, whether it's people in the community, business owners, or social service agencies. And so it's incredible to be a part of that effort in each and every community.
Well, the United Way in Perth Huron has recently gone with a new campaign, the new #Unignorable campaign, and I just want you to tell us about what this campaign is. What are you going to be doing? What's it trying to raise awareness of? Tell us about this campaign.
Absolutely. Well, we went to a lot of trouble. The United Way of Canada actually worked with Pantone, an organization. Have you ever heard of Pantone? Pantone Colors. And they made a new color for us, if you can believe it. So this shirt and other things around the room here are decorated in this color. And what we're trying to do is to create the understanding that issues, social issues, whether it's mental health or social isolation or hunger, those kinds of issues we need to bring into the forefront. We need to make sure that we're speaking about them as a community, that we're talking about them because our friends and our neighbors are affected by them. Spencer.
What are those issues? You talked a bit about those issues. Talk about the issues that are specifically significant here in St. Mary's.
For sure, yeah. And just a bit of background. A few years ago, just about 2 years ago, we gathered a group of local residents here in St. Mary's and we said, what are the most important social issues that you're facing as a community? And so when we did that, we discovered that there are a lot of challenges that people are facing here. And together with the social service agencies who do frontline work here, we decided that the most important things at that time were hunger and isolation. And so we worked at those two issues by bringing new programs. Well, we're in the midst of doing that actually. So you've heard a little bit from our friends with the Nourish t-shirts earlier with the first answer. So we're struggling, people are often struggling with the reality that it costs more money to purchase things these days than it used to. And so if you're living on a low income, it is really hard to eat fresh and healthy food. It isn't because the St. Mary's Independent Grocery Store isn't doing a good job. It's just simply because we don't have enough money to buy goods and services anymore. So people in your community are struggling with choices. They're struggling with, am I going to pay my hydro bill or am I going to purchase fresh and healthy food? And so we need to be there, and so we're providing this new market. It's a fantastic opportunity for people to come each month to purchase fresh, local, healthy food that they can have at a very discounted price. No profit is made. It's all either donated, the food, or it is bought at a wholesale price.
Now you talk about what the issues are. What are the ramifications of these issues? Like what does it mean that someone either can't pay their bills or they can't get fresh food? What does that mean? What does that lead to? What does that cause?
Well, when you are in a situation where you have to make those choices, first of all, there's a lot of challenges that people feel, the pressure. And we see individuals in our community that are struggling with stress, and that turns often into health-related issues. And so if we want to keep people out of the St. Mary's ER, one of the things we can do is to make sure that they have fresh and healthy food to eat. So health-related concerns are often the end. In addition to that, we know that there are a lot of people here in St. Mary's who are isolated, whether they're newcomers to the region, and it's not because this isn't a friendly town, this is just something that happens everywhere. Whether they're newcomers to the region or whether they've been here for a long time but they struggle perhaps with a mental illness or even another issue, many people in this community are facing isolation. And when that happens, in the same way, their health actually is in decline. We're people. We're built to be with people, for one thing, and we're healthier when we're connected to other human beings. But also, we know that when we're connected to services and the fun things that St. Mary's has to offer, we're living much more fulfilling lives. So our plan this year, with this year's United Way campaign, as well as raising money for the new Nourish Market again, is going to be to make sure that we can hire a new person through Marg McLean's organization, and they're going to make sure that they've got a person that's working on isolation here in this community, drawing them in.
United Way raised a significant amount of money last year, but its goal is even higher this year. Why is that extra money so important to the United Way, and what's it going to?
Well, it's a great question, Spencer. Every year the United Way strives to raise more money because we never have enough. I mean, that's frankly the bottom line. There are always more requests that come to us than we have money to support the organizations in our community. But more specifically, the number actually is mathematical. It adds up to the organizations that we're already supporting, plus the new programs and services that we want to help. So we're aiming this year for an 11% increase, $1.633 million.
Many think of the United Way, before we wrap up here, as this giant corporation. But the Perth Huron model is a bit different. Just if you can, in 30 to 45 seconds, talk about that model and talk about the St. Mary's Committee.
For sure. Yeah, what the United Way Perth Huron has done is we've established local community committees. And so like I mentioned before, we have volunteers working with us here in St. Mary's to identify the issues, then to help figure out what the priorities are, and then the solutions. And then, of course, we need to raise the money. So those folks are out there doing that. So our model is to work very locally with those volunteers. Now, the United Way everywhere is 100% local in our work. Across the world, that's the way the United Way operates, and we're separate legal chapters in each of the communities. And here, we make sure that when money is raised in St. Mary's, it stays in St. Mary's, and so that's the way we want to operate.
Well, I think I speak on behalf of everyone here when I say we wish you and the United Way all the best in reaching your goal, and thank you for the work you're doing here in St. Mary's. Thank you very much.